Welcome to the Relationships Inside Out podcast with Doctors Gregory Siebert and Kimberly Murray, licensed marriage and family therapists. Join them on this journey as they explore the ins and outs of relationships.
Well, welcome to Relationships Inside Out, where today we're going to talk about, yes, it's upon us, the New Year's.
I cannot believe it's already here. This year has zipped by for our household.
What year?
It's just crazy. It has gone by so fast.
Yeah. And let's reflect. Did we meet our resolutions?
I'd have to remember what my resolutions were.
I can't even remember.
To do the self-assessment. I think we said it was to be intentional or mindful. Maybe.
Mine's always self-compassion, so it's easy to remember.
How'd you do on that there, Greg?
Not good.
Yeah. That's most people's lived experience.
Actually, I would say yes and no. So in general, it wasn't more of a continual practice.
Yeah.
But I went and I go to my own therapist to work on that.
Yeah.
So I got support to do it, but it's not something I'm doing on a day-to-day basis or something that was in my mind what I wanted. And I think that goes to a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today, which I talked about the years before, is how to set goals. And one thing that's really important is making more of your outcome a range. So it's not just I'm going to do this 20 times, because if you don't meet it, even if it's 19, then you get upset. But if you have a range of I'm going to try to attempt to do this at least once a week for 6 months, or I'm going to at least do it 1 to 3 times a week. Having that range helps build confidence a little bit, and it doesn't set us back mentally if we don't meet it.
And we'll talk more about this, but keeping those resolutions attainable. I think the trap every year for people.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get started on whatever it is. Often it's the gym.
6-pack abs.
And by, about February 15th, that shit's over. Right? Any of my gym goers know January, we dread it. February, it's supposed to get better because we lose that momentum. And that's true in a lot of New Year's resolutions, where that first couple weeks, we're feeling so good. And then life gets hard. And then a kid gets sick. And then whatever. And it all goes to shit. So if you do a New Year's resolution, I say if, you don't have to, finding ones that feel attainable for you, measurable, but it could also be, instead of setting a resolution, setting an intentions, setting a word for the year, a focus point, something of that nature too.
What would be a word of the year? What's an example?
So one I've done in the past was healing. My intention is to focus on my healing or health. Another one I've done, I feel like resilience was one, right? Really believing in my own resilience, using that resilience to move me through what was a difficult stage of my life.
Yeah, and I like that, because the healing piece, if that's your word, would also bleed into boundaries that you put. Because if you know something doesn't align with your kind of goal of healing, then it's probably not something that you want to continue engaging in or with.
Gives you something to reflect back on, right? So as I'm making choices throughout the year, does this support my healing? If the answer is no, I'm going to make a different choice. Whether that is nutrition or going to a doctor or the people I choose to surround myself with. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I doing the things that I chose to embody for this year?
Yeah. And then earlier you said the things that we choose one thing.
Yes.
Not a bunch of things. Because then you don't know where to focus. And if you're a go-getter and you've been successful in the past, do it.
I want to lose 100 pounds and buy a new house and have a baby and have only really good friendships.
Yeah. So if you're human and you can't meet all those, then and you're having difficulty even meeting one, then stick to one and make it sure it's attainable. Typically, one thing that I would say is the biggest barrier for a lot of people continuing is, like you said earlier, a kid gets sick, things like that, is what we want to do does not really align with our day-to-day routine. And the further something we want to do, the further that is from our already natural process, the harder it's going to be to continue.
True.
And so maybe think about one that you could integrate into your life already more seamlessly, or how do we structure your life now to then integrate that more effectively? Because if it's too disparate or too off, it's going to be that's so far out of my way, I'm not going to drive over there.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
It's difficult, right? To build it into an already potentially full schedule.
A good example would say somebody's goal is, I want to practice more mindfulness and be more mindful this year. There's the extreme of you're going to a retreat and completely removing yourself, right? That's further away. It's going to disrupt your routine. If you can do that, great. But how do you do it in the day to day? So how do you do it with your work, and maybe practice on your senses and find more brief exercises? So if you want that goal, think about how you can integrate it and be more flexible with it, rather than having this idea of, I need to sit down and close my eyes and have that time for myself, because that may not be reasonable.
Expanding your options for what that means,
Mhm.
whether it's getting an app and having it guide you or give you options, or reach out to someone who's good in this area, so that you have almost like a buffet of choices to meet that goal.
Buffet. I love it.
Isn't that to my clients a lot of buffet of choices?
Only in America, buffet.
Oh, golly. It's terrible. But also thinking about, if you've tried this goal before, you think about weight loss. It's a huge one.
Yeah.
What has gotten in the way before that you couldn't do that? And address those barriers before the new year. Before you're like, all right, January 1, we're hitting the gym. I got my workout clothes. Before you do that, figure out the barriers.
Yeah.
And write out small steps. So maybe the first week, 2 weeks is just about getting enough water.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next week, you're going to add in 10 minutes of movement, right? We're going small. We're not saying I'm going from being completely sedentary to I'm going to work out 2 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, and I'm going to eat totally clean. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You and I both know, no, you're not, right?
Yeah.
So finding those small ways to do it and identifying those barriers to overcome them before they show back up.
And another barrier that came up for me when you were talking, I think it's a big one, is our own expectations of what that goal looks like. Sometimes it's too far-fetched and we are often left with disappointment. So I'm not going to reach that. Like you say, it's weight loss. Instead of maybe 5 pounds, it's I need to lose 50 this year. I mean, if you do, great. But if you set it there, you're setting ourselves up for potential failure. And I think of any goal we set, the important thing to get out of any goal is that you're proud of yourself, that you've tried and met some sort of that goal. But we can't do that when it's too unrealistic. And our expectations are just not necessarily, as you said earlier, attainable. So checking your own expectations of what you want that to look like. Maybe it's not, I want to engage in hot yoga every single day for 3 hours. Probably not.
No. And starting with 1 pound, right? Or get away from pounds. For some people, even that languaging.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Do you feel more energized? Are you getting better sleep? Do you feel like your clothes fit better?
Less pain, less inflammation.
Right. Focusing on that instead, right? If you know, maybe one of the barriers for you is the idea of the numbers on the scale. Don't get out the scale.
Throw that scale away.
Pick a different metric.
Yeah.
Right. If I love looking on, like, as much as I hate it, TikTok or even Google, if you look up Google images of 2 women that are, say, 150 pounds, 150 pounds looks a whole lot different on different people. And so when you say, well, I need to be this exact weight, you may not, right? So get away from that and get to how you feel.
So sometimes I feel the drive to go check my weight. And then I realize we don't have a scale because my wife got rid of it. And then I go to the doctors every year and they're like, how much have you weighed? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, they weigh you there, but they're like, is this normal this whole year? And I was like, I have no clue. But I would have the urge to probably weigh myself as part of a routine. So maybe just even removing it completely could be helpful for you.
Finding other metrics, right?
Yeah.
Other ways to measure health and change in body rather than that. If weight is important to you, and for some people it is, how often do you want to weigh? Okay, say you lose 0.2 pounds instead of a pound that first week or whatever. How can you still love on yourself? Because if that first week you already feel like you failed, you're going to quit. Motivation comes second, not first.
This is where the expectations come in, especially in the context of the weight loss, because it's, if you have knowledge about that process and you're working out, you're also gaining muscle, which weighs more. So you may not be losing weight.
And there's inflammation when you first start working out.
Yeah. And you might be gaining, in fact, but it's not unhealthy weight. But if we just go by the metric of what the scale says, not the best measure of what our success looks like. So I think that's a great topic too, is there's expectations, but then what are we using to measure whether we were successful or not?
And no matter the goal, remember this, motivation is second, not first. You don't start with motivation. New Year's, we feel like we do because we get all pumped. Motivation is born from doing something repeatedly and starting to see change. We're starting to feel better. That is when motivation comes in, but effort supersedes motivation.
No, I'm just going to wait until I feel like I'm going to do it.
Which is why we never get shit done. It's so bad.
I know. I barely made it here today.
I believe that.
I'm just kidding.
But
Yeah.
with those goals, so starting smaller, thinking about how will this serve you? How can I enjoy the journey along the way? The journey shouldn't feel arduous and heavy and I dread it because the motivation is never going to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also it's okay if it does.
At times, sure.
And maybe that's what you're needing in your life is
Mm-hmm.
a challenge or something to, throw the mundaneness off of the 9 to 5 kind of work life, if that's
Mm-hmm.
one's lifestyle. But sometimes shaking up the routine is also just exciting.
Sure.
I'm doing something different. And it also doesn't have to be something just with ourselves. We can make it about our family or a couple relationship. It could be a goal like, I want to be more present. I want to engage in more play with my partner. I want to go to a couple courses with my partner and just learn more about us.
I want to share gratitude every day. I want to teach my kids about gratitude, right? I love that. Focusing on your whole system because that impacts your health overall anyway. Yeah.
I mean, relationships are one of the top predictors of happiness. Gratitude is a top predictor of happiness. Those are big ones. So maybe it's practicing gratitude. And that's something that's like, you don't have to go anywhere for that.
Nope.
There's even like 5-minute gratitude journals that you can engage in. It's like literally 3 things, like when you get up in the morning and then 2 things at night. It's very simple.
Our daughter, she's 6, and we every day we do what was a good part of your day? What was a hard part of your day? What are you grateful for? When was someone kind to you and when were you kind to them? And just doing that with her every day, that gets her paying attention to kindness, but also things to be grateful for because she knows them when I ask it at night, right? Yeah. And it makes her aware of how she's kind to other people. Yeah. Something like that. It takes 5 minutes with her every night, maybe. Yeah. And it's enough to get her brain to really start cueing into those positive aspects of life, not just the hard ones.
So it'd be more of like, I want to demonstrate more gratitude or whatever have you. Yeah. I mean, even it could be spirituality too. It doesn't have to be gym, working out, diet, or anything like that. It could be, you want to get more spiritual with your family. And one of those goals is to bring the family to your place of worship, whatever that looks like. Maybe that's what it would be a goal for you that doesn't necessarily go outside of your routine.
I want to get outside more. Regardless of what the goal is, I think an important part is accountability. Whether that's in your plan or writing out reminders for the whole year, not just the first couple weeks, write it out through the 12 months so it stays with you. Or having that person that keeps you accountable or checks in with you. Having a certain benchmark or goal you want to get to, right? If you want to train for your first marathon, write out little teeny goals for the next 15 weeks, whatever, to keep yourself on track over that initial hump.
Because if you're like me and procrastinate, I'm going to wait to do all that training the weekend before the marathon.
Then you're going to die.
And then I'm going to, die.
But New Year's, while it gives us that fresh start isn't enough to keep us rolling. We have to build in the steps and tools to keep that movement going.
Yeah. Going back to is it integratable into your already life? Is it attainable? Like it's realistic? And what are your expectations of the measures of it? Who do you have for accountability? The accountability one's interesting because we also see with people holding other ones accountable is like, thanks for not holding me accountable this year. Now I'm fat, or now I didn't meet my goals, like, and putting it all on this other person.
Blame on the other person.
Be very, I guess, mindful of what the accountability is going to look like and the amount of responsibility you put on somebody. Maybe it's just them like they give you praise or something, or words of affirmation when they notice you do that or something.
Having even like positive reward for yourself can be, or positive reinforcement can be really helpful, right? After my first 3 pounds lost, I'm going to get a new workout shirt. After I practice mindfulness consistently for 60 days, I'm going to book that retreat that I want to go on. Doing things like that can also help with motivation, help with accountability.
One that I like that I've used myself is for every time that I engage in it, I put like, I don't know, $5 into an account. And however many times I do it, it builds up. And then I get to spend it on myself.
Well, that's nice.
But if not, and I don't do it, then
you don't get to spend it.
I have to put it towards something that's not selfish, which is what I want to be. But it could be that. And actually there's apps out there where you put money on, you bet on yourself.
Interesting.
And you lose it if you don't do that. So, I mean, that's a little more extreme, but there are ways to hold yourself accountable. And I'm like, well, I just pay a gym, and if I don't go, then I bet on myself and I lost it. So
that's why gyms are so successful, because everyone buys these memberships and then they just sit and roll through. I'm gonna get to the gym next week. I promise I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Well, then your kid pukes on you. Okay, so it's gonna be the week after.
My back hurts.
It's always something,
Yeah.
right? It's too busy, or we're too busy, or whatever it might be.
And that is actually okay. If you notice that it's not working, let's go back and reevaluate it and make it more reasonable. Don't just give up on it. Let's find a way to adapt it.
To recalibrate.
Yeah, let's recalibrate it. Which a lot of us don't think about. It's either black or white. You either do it or you don't.
And just because you messed up doesn't mean it's lost forever. Often we have this belief of, well, I had a cheat day, so my whole diet's ruined. And then we just quit. Don't just quit. That's why you're in the cycle you're in, right? Tomorrow's a fresh day. Restart.
And we all engage in that language ourselves. Even us, like, trained in this, is that it's very much, oh, nope, I already fell back to square zero. No, especially like diet, like all that adds up into your body, into your lifespan and things like that. Like,
I've already had a cookie, so dinner doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Right. Or, well, I already missed my workout yesterday, so I'm just going to skip for the week. Nope. Right.
I like that one. I use that one.
Every Tuesday, Greg's saying that. It's tough. It's really tough. And it takes that consistency. But I love what you said about recalibrating, because what we think is going to fit into our life or feels like a good goal in January, that may change because of life circumstances in March, April, May, whatever. Recalibrate. Allow yourself a little grace and flexibility to move with your changes as they happen.
Yeah. And it may be not that you wait and do it reactionary, that you actually set little markers for yourself throughout the year of when you reevaluate. So maybe it's every 2 months or every quarter you reevaluate where you're at. And so at least you have a set date, and it's not just reactionary, because a lot of times we're not in the best place. But even when you're reactionary, it could be helpful instead of just giving up, because a lot of us do.
I think another important part is when you set your intention, your resolution, your hope, whatever, make sure it's for you. It's not for someone else, right? If I feel like I have to achieve something because someone else wants that of me, or because that's what I should do, or whatever, it's much less likely to stick or be helpful. It's going to become a stressor rather than something beneficial.
Yeah. I see that a lot with, like, flex on your ex, you know, that statement.
No.
So, you know, you get broken up with and you're like, okay, well, I want to go get swole and work out.
Oh, like a revenge body.
Revenge. I've never heard that. That's
got it. Okay, now I can connect. Yeah.
revenge body.
Yeah.
You're giving revenge on somebody because you look so good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the central premise is now I'm hot and you missed out.
I call it flex on your ice. Wow. Are you doing something? Yeah. But that's that thing is it probably works until you get it. And then once you get it, now what motivation do you have? It's gone. Whereas if it's about how you feel, and I've been there, I've actually done that where I've, like, worked out. I'm like, oh yeah. And then it's like,
you would.
All right, I'm done. Like, yep.
And we think it's going to make us happy and it's going to fix everything. Remember, just because you achieve this one goal, you may not be perpetually happy.
Yeah.
It is but one part of building that happiness.
Yeah. And I think one thing you hit on that is going to be important is maybe the goal is just how you feel. So it might be how you feel just because you engaged in it. It might be how you feel because of what that thing does for you. But those things are stick because it's a feeling you have, and you know it makes you feel better. If it's so healthy, important. Of course. Right.
Our hope with the new year is like a fresh start. What do you want your fresh start to look like? Yeah. What would feel good for you? Not more stressful. At times it might be more stressful, right? But the general feeling, hopefully, is that it feels good.
And I really hate that it's New Year's that we have to reevaluate this stuff, because it's just like, come February, I'm like, I'm already fucked. So I'll just wait till next year, you know? And it's like, why?
Especially with the intersection of winter blues, right? February is such a hard month, and same with January for people in winter.
Yeah.
And so the intersection of the two is really, really unfortunate, because it does not help our motivation.
It makes me curious now. Is it actually New Year's that motivates us or elicits this? Or is it the fact that we had, at least depending on what you celebrate, Thanksgiving and then a holiday where you eat a ton back to back almost, and we all feel like crap. And so we're like, I don't want to feel like crap anymore.
And drink a bunch. Like people do dry January.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Eggnog.
What about eggnog, Greg?
I mean, it's just a drink of choice for alcohol and
Oh,
I
was not tracking that one. Woo!
Christmas vacation, the eggnog and those moose cups. No?
Okay, Greg, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Right.
I've never seen it.
I'm old.
You're not. Everyone else and their mother has seen it and
So you're weird.
sheltered. Yeah. We watch things like Jurassic Park and It instead.
So is that
Growing
your
up,
goal for,
yeah.
is that going to be one of your New Year's resolutions, is to be unsheltered?
I feel like it should be, it should be. to
Maybe
watch
that's
the
your
movie.
one goal. Watch Christmas Vacation.
Everyone tells me I need to. So, just for everyone else, it's going to be my goal.
But I fear that you won't like it because it's been so highly pressured.
And hyped.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really.
So yeah, maybe don't.
See, these are the hard decisions we have to make here, right?
Yeah. And I guess one goal I'll have is to stay on track. A lot of times my mind wanders. So that'll be a goal. As this conversation has just digressed.
So what are your intentions as you go into the new year, Greg? What are we focusing on?
Well, I'm expecting a son.
So excited.
So at the beginning of the new year. So I think they're going to be more geared towards my emotional well-being. So I can be more present. I would say one thing that I've noticed about myself, especially like after military, is that I can be emotionally reactive depending on certain times. And I don't want to create that stressful environment.
Sure.
So I think emotional regulation and getting better at that is going to be one for me.
So exciting and challenging and awesome and all the things. Yeah.
It's going to be hard to keep patience, but I'm going to.
That's what I'm here for, Greg.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. And part of this goal for myself is weaving in their self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So self-compassion has always been mine, but you have to be compassionate myself because I'm not going to be perfect at it. Something like this is something that you're not going to be all or nothing. You're human and you're growing and you're going to learn and try to find new ways that works. Yeah. And so self-compassion is going to be a huge piece of that for me.
For any parent, that is such a big one, right?
Well,
I love that.
Because the parent culture is toxic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much judgment because of our own guilt of what we're doing. So we like judge others so we feel better.
You should do all the things. It's
so hard to not feel bad and guilty as a parent. So self-compassion is extremely important. And yeah. What about for you?
Ooh, we as Greg and I are expanding our business and what that looks like. So a big part of it for me is that really leaning into growing how we can help the people around us. But also for me is a continued journey of health and understanding my body and doing it for me, not to fit the ideals of American culture, and finding out what that means for me. Yeah. And health for me also does include that mental health piece. So I also see my own therapist and will continue to do so. Yeah. But getting in a place where I feel good in my own skin and can cut out relationships that don't feel good for me or validating for me, where I can feel confident in that, confident in my business, confident in parenting, while also holding compassion, because confidence is not my first nature. Right. And I will make mistakes, which then validate my lack of confidence. So for me, that's where I'm going to go. It's like really solidifying my sense of self and my health.
And I love that because it speaks to this, a resolution that someone might have of this year. I just want to be and learn to be a little more aware of myself. Yeah. It might just be awareness. It may not be doing anything about that awareness. It could just be being aware of my body in certain situations, around certain people, with certain foods.
Learning my preferences, not informed by someone else. Like so much of my world growing up, even now, is driven by, well, so-and-so wants me to do it, so I'm going to do it. So-and-so wants me to be in relationship with this person, so I am. And I preach so much to my girls of really feeling confident in their choices and their bodies. And I struggle with that. So I think that's where I'm going to go. Yeah. Is really getting clear about how I want my space to look for me, not for the audience that is around me.
Yeah. And I love that because it's not these typical New Year's resolutions that people think of. The diets, the exercises, the money. And those are fine, but these are better. I'm biased. These are better ideas. These are different ideas that get at different parts of our well-being. Finances, that's great. It's not even a top predictor of happiness. Nope. Physical health is always extremely important. And actually, you and I joked, we didn't bring this one up, but we joked that this episode should have just been about sleep because maybe that's the most important New resolution.
What I would do for a solid 8 hours of sleep. Ugh. I would pay good money.
Yeah. And sleep is actually a very, very, very important health behavior, and we actually have a previous episode on it. I think episode 46. So that could be a goal of improving sleep health, like your sleep hygiene, and figuring out how to improve that for yourself.
Finally doing sleep training with your kiddo or whatever it is that's getting in the way.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
It's very important. I mean, it sets us up for the next day, for our emotional well-being, and how reactive we're not reactive we are to the world around us.
I'm never reactive, Greg. Just don't ask my children or husband.
Me either. You know, my finger doesn't come out my window when people cut me off in traffic.
Okay. Believe that when I see that. But finding my goal will not resonate for other people.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Right?
Yeah.
Your goal in the stage you're entering won't click with other people. Find what is your goal.
Yeah.
Not what Susie Q's goal is. So I should do that so I can be cool like Susie Q. Nope.
Yeah.
Find for you.
And another thing that we've talked about in other episodes that's important and also could be a good way to make sure that we stick to it is finding something that's in line with our values. So you might value health, or you might value family, things like that. So find something that is actually a value of yours, not somebody else's value, but your own. And kind of we've talked about in the previous episode is determining whether that's emotional value, or sorry, is that emotional kind of need, or is it actually a true value?
Yep.
So I think about like health, for example, it's the easiest one I can think of. Is that really a value, or is that an emotional response to your fear of your own mortality, or a fear of what other people think of you?
A huge one.
So what is it? And if you can really distinguish between a value versus like an emotional compass, I guess we'll call it the compass, right? Is it part of your value compass that you want to do these behaviors for New Year's, or is it an emotional compass or response?
Because emotions change.
They change. Yeah.
So your desire or reaction to this might change. Whereas if it's a value, like for me, a value is mental health, is physical health, is congruency between the lessons I teach and the lessons I do myself. That's huge.
Yeah. And that is hard to be honest with ourselves about that, of like why. And we often convince ourselves it's value. That's fine, but just pick something, whatever you think is a value for yourself.
Find that accountability for yourself, write it out in your planner for the rest of the year. Find an accountability buddy, find a group, find, workshops that you pre-plan and prepay for ahead of time so that you have something to look forward to in the months ahead.
Yeah, you talk about accountability buddy. Accountability buddy?
Ooh.
That's what people call it. Accountability buddy. That's fine. Again,
learn so much. Accountability buddy and flex on your ex. All right.
And revenge body.
Quality.
Think about what that function is. So say, I got a friend that wants to do the exact same goal as me. We're going to join a gym together, or we're going to join these courses together. That's great, but don't make your progress contingent upon whether they go or not. It's great to be accountable, but it's very hard if your motivation is dependent upon whether they're there with you.
You saw me cringe, Greg, because
I did.
Oh, my friend. Well, then I'm not going to go. No, your goal cannot be intertwined in someone else's behavior.
Or you really don't like your friend because they're a drill sergeant and they're getting your ass to go all the time.
That's me to my poor husband.
Oh, is this what's going on?
Oh gosh, he hates working out with me. It's terrible.
Do you have like a headset on with a microphone in your basement and yelling at him through the speakers, or?
Let's put it this way, I don't need the headset. So I'm really picky about form and it drives him nuts, but I just sloppy form, and I could soapbox on another day on that.
Oh, yeah.
My poor daughter and kid strong at 6 years old. I'm like, get your butt up. What is that? That is not a push-up. These other parents are like, what?
As your foot's on their back.
It's so bad. It's
my
bad.
goodness.
I'm a little picky in this area.
Yeah. So yeah, be careful who you choose as your accountability buddy.
This topic comes up every year because every year there's a pressure to name your New Year's resolution and likely put on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever, and pressure to follow through.
And whether we like it or not, for our clients, this is a really good psychological reset in the sense of it's cultural norm, at least for our culture, to say New Year's is a time to reset and think about how you want to revisit your life. And that's very important because a lot of people are not in the stage of change that's ready for change. But something like New Year's comes around, it moves people automatically just because of the cultural narrative around it into this idea of like, this is when I can change. It allows me to change. And that's fine. And this is why it does come up all the time. Otherwise, I don't know if we'd have an episode on it because quite frankly, I feel like we should be revisiting this every year and reevaluating to set
Yeah.
these markers. But this is just a natural, I think, opportunity for a
Agreed.
lot of people just to say, you know what? Yes, I'm not good the rest of the year, but because of the culture narrative around this, I'm going to use this as a time to look at myself. And even just doing that's good, even if you don't do anything about it.
Journaling about it,
Yeah.
doing some self-reflection, reflecting on what you were grateful for the past year, what you learned in the past year that you want to carry forward. Anything of that nature can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Well, this was Relationships Inside Out, where today we visited New Year's resolutions again. Like I don't know how we're here already.
I know.
It's crazy. As always, if anyone has any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to email us at relationshipsinsideout@gmail.com. Thanks.
Thanks.